Early. Now you're on time. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited. Welcome to my very first Lagniappe Lounge. I'm Ruby. I'm a little extra. And this is my Lagniappe life. Whether you're planning your next vacation or you're just dreaming about travel, I'm glad you're here. And we're going to talk about some of my little tricks and tips of travel. Before we start, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the name because people are caught up on our name. Lagniappe. Nope, that's not how you say it. Hey, look who joined me.
Hey,
this is Nick. You guys know Nick? He's my fiance.
That's me.
And, since he's here, he could talk about Lagniappe. So it is pronounced Lagniappe Life. That is the name of the channel. And Nick could talk a little bit about how we came up with that. We cut out for a minute there. Okay, so Nick can talk a little bit about my working here. Just want to make sure I'm working. Talk a little bit about what the channel is, why it's named Lagniappe, and what it means. So,
got it.
Let's talk a bit.
Well, I'm from New Orleans, and New Orleans is one of our favorite cities to still go back to a lot. And growing up in New Orleans, I became familiar with this term working in the French Quarter at a restaurant in the French Quarter. And Lagniappe is a Creole. It's actually got French and Spanish roots. And the culture in New Orleans is French and Spanish by origin. And Lagniappe started as a reference to when a merchant gives you a little something extra. And like a lot of people get a baker's dozen of donuts where they throw in an extra 13th donut. Or
in New Orleans, it would be beignets.
Or there you go, or beignets. And when I worked in the French Quarter, a lot of times the chef or the cooking staff wanted to try out a new dish, and we would drop free samples on the tables to get patron feedback on our new dishes. And that became a part of New Orleans culture. When you go out to eat, and you get a little something extra for free. So we both kind of embrace that concept when we travel, always looking for that little something extra we can get.
Well, it really didn't work out it didn't originate that way. We found out, we didn't go looking for it, but we found out that when we do travel, we always find these times where we get a little extra for free. And so when we were trying to come up with the name, we had often used Lagniappe as just, oh my gosh, we got Lagniappe. Oh my goodness, we got Lagniappe. And so when we came up, we were trying to come up with the name, we saw it so fitting because as we traveled, we realized that was a very appropriate name for what we were getting as we were traveling. And we want to share how to get all of that when you travel. So, our life has evolved into a lot extra. We get a lot of extra, or we just,
you're a little extra.
Well, I think I'm a lot extra too.
Yeah.
But so we feel like, the name came about very organically, and, it's been a great journey, finding the Lagniappe and everything, right?
Still looking.
Still looking. Which brings us to kind of what we're doing here. Nick and I just love to travel. And as we travel, we are always now looking for the Lagniappe. And and it's not like we're, looking for something for free. We are actually, when we get it, we acknowledge that, we got it. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about several things, but one of the things we're going to talk about is some of the lagniappe we see. And one of the lagniappe things that we see is long layovers. So we're going to talk about long layovers. We're going to talk about when you go on that long layover, what do you need to do to prepare for that? Then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about our trip to Portugal and Spain that we did. And then, of course, how I travel, how I plan the trips.
She does all the planning.
Nick is just here for his good looks because he does none of the travel.
Hey, I show up.
He does show up, and I do get feedback from him in terms of when I'm booking things. But I'll talk a little bit about how I do that, and then some travel hacks. And then if you have any questions, please, jump in, ask me questions. If you, are looking to, book a travel vacation. I'm not a travel agent, maybe down the line, maybe, but I'm not a travel agent, but I can give you some travel tips that you can definitely use to either save you some money or just have more fun. So let's jump into it. You ready? Are you going to stay?
I'll stay. I'll stay for a little bit.
Okay. All right. He's going to stay. He's welcome to stay. Let's talk a little bit about long layovers. So, why do I, Nick and I travel in the United States. We go and visit family members and things like that. We, travel to Canada because it's close. But when we travel, a long distance to Europe, to Asia, we like to book long layovers. And that's the lagniappe, because you get like another trip to a destination you had not planned on going to. Maybe it wasn't on your bucket list, but it is definitely somewhere extra that you can go for free because it's included in your trip. So we've done that several times. We traveled to Thailand a few years ago and went to, where do we go? Oh, Japan. Yeah. So we went to Japan. Now, mind you, Japan was
that was during the pandemic.
Well, it wasn't
right after.
Yeah, it was right after the pandemic. So they still weren't letting people, unless you actually Japan was your final destination. They weren't letting you out of the airport.
We were trapped in the airport.
Yeah, for 5 hours.
Yes.
So so that wasn't. I do plan on going back to Japan at some point. Because I really want to get some sushi in Japan, and some Wagyu beef.
I'm down for that.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
The Wagyu.
So you want to get back there. That's the other thing. If you do a long layover, you could decide if you ever want to, go back. Like we went to Barcelona and we had a long layover in Amsterdam. And just last year, we spent some time in Amsterdam. So we decided to go back there and, check it out for real. So we had a long layover in Japan.
But I think it's important, when you're looking at a long layover, one of the things we learned is another issue with Japan was we arrived at like midnight and we left at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if we could have gotten out of the airport, there's nothing really to see between midnight and 5 a.m.
So that is something that you need to be
aware scheduling of. That layover is important because on the way back, when we stopped in Paris, it was like, what are our hours in Paris? How long to get in? How long to get out? Is that during the day? What can be done during those hours?
So which brings us to another good point. When you schedule a long layover, you want to make sure you have enough time to do things, right? And you want to make sure you have enough time you have to store your luggage. So Nick and I are not backpackers when we travel. So we're not those people. We take big suitcases and we are
just
not,
one.
Well, I have one. He has one.
Mm-hmm.
And, I do carry a backpack and sometimes I carry a little, roller bag. And so we definitely carry our bags when we travel. Now, generally, the bags that you've checked will go on to your final destination. But if I'm carrying a roller bag and a backpack, I still don't want to carry those all over town. So one of the things that I, do is I make sure that they have a storage locker in the airport. And one of the things that you can do is make sure that you know what terminal that storage locker is in. And ask people along the way so you can get there quicker. So you don't want to burn all your time looking for the storage locker. So these are all prep tips that you can take.
We almost got burned on that in Paris, because we came into Charles de Gaulle in Terminal 1 and stored our luggage in Terminal 1. And we didn't realize at the time we were flying out to Athens from Terminal 2 or 3.
Yeah, something like that.
And it took some doing to get back into Terminal 1, get back to where our luggage was stored, and then take the bus or the tram to the next terminal at CDG. So, luckily we planned a good window.
Right. So, learn from our mistakes, right? So make sure that you know where the luggage, storage area is. And most large international airports have a storage place for your luggage. I know Paris had one. I know Dublin had one. We'll talk a little bit more about Dublin in a minute. We spent 48 hours in Singapore on the way back from Thailand. So we didn't need a storage locker. We actually took our luggage with us. And where else did we go? Amsterdam, we found a storage locker there. So just make sure that you book your your long layovers around, I would say, no less than 5 hours, especially if the things that you want to get into are, a travel distance away from the airport. Generally, we will just Uber, or a lot of places have trains, and you can, do some research on that too. If you're going to take the train somewhere, see how long it takes to get from, where you are to where you want to go, so that you can factor in those times. So we went to Dublin on our way to Portugal. It was awesome. We flew Aer Lingus, and which is our Irish
an Irish airline.
Irish airline. And so we did a 5-hour layover in Dublin. Now, there was a lot of places that I wanted to go when I went to Dublin. I wanted to go to the Guinness Museum.
Boy, did she want to go to the Guinness Museum.
Yes, I did. And the thing is, it was 45 minutes roughly to the airport. And then I didn't know what traffic was going to be like. So we actually found some places that we can go to a little bit closer to the airport. Which brings me to how we found these places.
Yes.
So, not just how, but in terms of when Nick and I travel, and this is more me than Nick, I always like thematic travel. For instance, if, we are big Game of Thrones fans. So if we travel to a place that has any
film locations.
Yeah, film locations. We always do a Game of Thrones tour. We're big Outlander fans. We will do Outlander tours. In Singapore, I did a Crazy Rich Asians tour because I love that movie.
Yep.
So I do things based on themes too. So, I enjoy doing that. You will be surprised how many different countries around the world are locations for places that the places of shows that you watch. So one of the things that I knew, we were going to experience in Portugal, one of the themes was castles and palaces. And so I am aware that Dublin had a couple of castles as well. So that was one of the things that we hit up.
And also, I have a thing for castles.
Yes, he does.
The castle theme was just such an awesome idea. I'm a I'm into medieval lore and a little D&D background, so castles and medieval stuff in Europe is very fascinating for me.
Yeah, so you just want to make sure that when you book your layover, you book smart. Make sure that you have at least minimally 5 hours as the layover so that you can get in the airport and out. And oh, that's the other thing you want to do. You want to make sure that you never know how long it's going to take to get through immigration on the way out or through immigration on the way in. You're not doing all the things, right? Coming back, you're not checking luggage. You don't need to check in, but you do need to go through immigration, especially if you're traveling to a different country. And from Dublin, from Ireland, we were traveling to Portugal. So we did need to, go through passport control and all of that. So you want to make sure you factor all those things when you're booking your long layover. The other thing you want to make sure that you have is a little bag, a layover bag. When I travel in a very comfortable, soft, travel jumper or, travel outfit. And so I also have what they call compression socks that I travel with. But that's not what I want to wear when I get to my final destination, or if I have a long layover, that's not what I want to wear. So I always check the weather. What is it? What is the weather going to be like when I, travel?
And that was important in Dublin because when we got off the plane, it was windy and cold and raining.
And so I messed up on that one. I didn't pack the right shoe. And I actually packed, but I put it in my carry-on, and then I left my carry-on in the luggage locker. And so I forgot to take my stuff out, and I didn't realize it until I got out of that area. And I was just like, I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to wear what I have on. So again, learn from my mistakes. I always pack in compression bags. And so I just find it's easier for organization. And so in that little compression bag, you put it in your backpack or whatever, pack the appropriate pants or shorts, a nice top, walking shoes. If you're going to go hiking, we ended up hiking over by outside the castle. And I was in my
sandals,
my slides, my slides and compression socks. So it was definitely challenging when I had gone to Dublin. So, what do we call that? A seminar? I took a seminar on, long layovers and how to pack for that. And
that was a learning experience.
It was a learning experience that I will learn from, and I have learned from, and I make sure that I pack my little bag for my adventure.
You also have to make sure if you have a plan for the layover that it's very flexible.
Right.
When we landed in Paris, we had a grand plan to get out of the airport and spend the day at the Eiffel Tower and touring the gardens in the area. And when we got off the plane, it was pouring rain. And we already had tickets to Eiffel Tower. So we went, but we had to take a cab in the rain, run out there. Luckily, when you have tickets, you don't have to stand in line. But and luckily, the tower is sheltered once you're there.
Right.
And it was fun going up to the top and having our champagne and taking some nice pictures of views of Paris. But we had to quickly pivot most of our plans for rain.
Right.
Without abandoning them.
And we like I said, I kind of left my stuff that I was supposed to take with me when we went to Dublin. But, doing that long layover made me realize that I do want to go back to Dublin. I do want to go back to Ireland. And that was also, just to kind of back up, that's one of the reasons why I didn't book the Guinness Museum is one, you have to book, one, you have to show up during your time. And just recently, it just seems like a lot of flights have been delayed. And we knew that if we didn't get there right, I think we were supposed to arrive at like 12:30 in the afternoon. And if we didn't get there right at 12:30 and we didn't make it, yeah, we didn't make it to our, exactly. So we wanted to make sure, and we only had like a 5-hour window. So even if I would have planned it, out, at 2 o'clock, it would have still been cutting it a little close when we wanted to do the whole tour and then make it back to the airport in time. So you have to take those details into consideration and make sure that you plan for that. So we ended up doing the Hout experience.
And another learning experience off of that was we were going to go to a different castle
right.
that was further away. And our Uber driver said, traffic today is really tough. If you're looking to do a quick, fun activity, I suggest going to Hout Castle, which is nearer and they'll give you more time in the area, having fun, less time stuck in traffic. So actually, based on his recommendation, we pivoted to Hout, and it was fun.
I want to hear from you guys, people out there. Would you do a long layover? And if you did a long layover, where would you want to go on your trip? Where are you going on your next trip? And are you going to look into doing a long layover? I always want to know. So, by
the way, yes. I was going to mention, yes. We do a lot of international travel these days. And I want to tell you, every time we come back, I am so thankful that we got global entry.
Right.
Getting through passport control, global entry is the difference between 5 or 10 minutes and 30 to 60 or 90 minutes.
Right.
So global entry has been a godsend coming back in.
Yeah. So good to know. Thank you. That was a good one. So just to review, when you go on a long layover, make sure you pack your comfortable clothes, clothes that you can wear during your long layover, and then ones you don't mind wearing when you get to your final destination. Check the weather before you go so that you're packing the appropriate things. You want to make sure that you have your toiletries, any medication, comfortable shoes, your phone charger. Very important. A power bank if you need it. Make sure you have your passport with you, and then you can have your small bag. Now you could carry this with you in a small backpack, or you can change and then put all your stuff in your larger roller bag or whatever, and then check that when you go out of the airport. So. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I want to mention, now we're a little old school, and not only are we old school, but we have a lot of family that live around the United States. So one of the things that we've been doing is buying postcards for our family members. And one of the things that we learned in Dublin is that they have a digital stamp. I think it's called Ampost, or I'll have to write it down and put it in the comments and put it in the comments for you.
I think you're right.
But there is a digital stamp that Ireland has, so you can send postcards. And I have to say, the postcard that I sent from Ireland got here.
Would it take a month?
No, actually, those got here quick. The ones that we sent from Portugal and Spain took about 3 months, literally. And so we ended up getting
snail mail.
Yes,
overseas.
Right.
Snails don't swim
though. So the one from Dublin, though, with the digital stamp, got here before we did. So I sent one home to my mom. And then we sent one to the grandkids and to my daughter that lives in Texas. And they all got their Dublin postcard
And
before we returned home.
The digital stamp was a great idea because if you have ever tried to buy stamps in an airport, it's almost impossible.
Right.
So,
and that's another factor. Like, they do have stamps in the airport, and they do have a little post box that you could put, a mailbox that you could put things in. But you know what? If you don't know where it is, then, and it's out of the way, you have to wait till you get to the next destination to send them home. So just be aware of that. That's just something that we do. You don't have to do it, but it's still
fun to get a postcard from somebody in a foreign country.
Yes. All right. So I do want to talk a little bit about how I plan my trips. So
I'll tell you what, I'll take my cue.
Okay.
She's the logistics expert. So you get into that.
Look at him running for his life. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for spending time. Can I have your mic back?
Yes.
All right. I'll take that from him.
All right.
All right.
See you guys later.
Bye. All right. Thank you, Nick, for coming and joining me. Saw me all by myself. All right. So let me give you some more tips. So how do I plan my trips? I do all the planning, like I said. And so Nick and I pretty much, talk about where we want to go. And then as we determine where we're going, I start to look at Google Flights. I look at, where we can go, what airlines we can take. I do use some of my, I try to use airlines where I have points. I go there as part of my journey and research. But sometimes it doesn't end up that way. There are partners, right? Where you can use points and things like that. I won't go too much into points or anything like that right now. Later on, we can go and talk a little bit more about that. But I do use Google Flights in order to, look at my flights. I also use Expedia and Agoda and Airbnb and what else do I use? Vrbo, in terms of lodging. So I do use all of those different websites in order to find where I'm going. But one of the things that I do is I do plan my trips around themes. I'm kind of, the most spirited when it comes to things. I like to dress up. I like to go to places of, shows that I've seen. When we went to Barcelona, we went to Girona, and Girona was one of the film places of Game of Thrones. I want to go back to Ireland because I know that both Game of Thrones and The Outlander was filmed in parts of Ireland. So I want to do that. And then when we went to Sevilla, that was, it's going to be my next video, by the way. And we did a Game of Thrones journey there. So stay tuned for that. And of course, I told you about Crazy Rich Asians. I also look at the historical, if I'm going to visit a place, I want to look at the history behind the place. What kind of things do we need to go? What are some of the places that we need to hit up if we only have a certain amount of time? And so that is all part of my journey that I use ChatGPT. I know some people don't like AI, but ever since my daughter has, put me on to ChatGPT, I could ask the questions, and Chat is very informative regarding any history of the place that I'm going. It also gives me some, feedback into where I should stay, recommendations on where I should stay. And when I say where I should stay, it's more like, if I'm going to rent a car, if I'm going to take the train, if I'm going to fly out, and take a quick flight somewhere, or if I'm going to be Ubering all the time, or if I'm going to walk a lot, all those things determine where I'm going to stay. In most cases, I stay somewhere within the area where I'm going to do most of my touring, right? So anywhere that I go, a lot of times I'm staying in the central area or the downtown area, a walkable area. So I make sure that I book places that are centrally located so I can get around easily. Um, I also like to have different experiences. Airbnb has this thing now where you can stay in a place that'll allow you to have an experience as well. Mind you, I haven't used Airbnb in a while, but I did notice that they have that. So I curate my own experiences based on places that I stay. This past place that we stayed, actually, I didn't even know that this was the deal until I got there, but it actually hit our niche. Our theme was palaces and castles. And the last place we stayed in Portugal, near Lisbon, was previously a palace. And so didn't know it, but it was great that I found that out. It fit the theme. It was great. The other thing I do is talk to travelers. I have friends that have traveled all over the world, and I pick their brains before I go. Should I hit this place? Should I hit this place? If I only have this many days, where should I go? What are the places that I need to go for sure? So I do also watch a lot of YouTube. So YouTube, and I also read blogs that people write about their travels. But YouTube has been a sense of, gold for me in terms of I just put in my search engine, I'm going to Lisbon, and, videos will pop up of everybody who's visited Lisbon and all, the 6 things you need to do, the 5 things you need to do. That was one of the reasons why I did this, because I'd go places and people would be like, oh, what is there to do there? I'm going there. So they would ask me for advice on different places to go. So definitely pick the brains of your friends who travel, because they can give you a lot of information, and use YouTube. The other thing you want to do is, first thing out of the gate, do a free walking tour. Now, there's a lot of walking tours that you can pay for. And let me tell you the difference between the two. So the paid tour, you're actually paying a company who sends a docent or a tour guide that will, take you to all the highlights of that area. And that's fabulous. I love it. I love that, you can do that. A free walking tour, however, are generally people who work for themselves. They kind of get outsourced by a company, but they work for themselves. So what happens is you pay the paid tours, you pay the tour company, and then the tour guide gets a cut, or they get their salary or their wage or whatever. And then on top of that, you pay them. And then they take you on the tour, and then at the end of your tour, you give them a tip, whatever you think is necessary. Free walking tours, where people are pretty independent and they're working for themselves, you generally practice is to tip them what you would normally pay for a tour, and they get all of it. Right. So they get the money that you would pay for a pay tour, the tip that you give them at the end, they would get all of that. And I would have to say that the free walking tours, the quality has been, well, the paid ones, the quality is good. I can't say that the quality has been bad, but I feel like the free walking tours, the quality has been better, because One, you get somebody who really, really wants to do it because, they may or may not get a tip, during this time because it's a free tour and you really don't have to pay for it. Um, but then also, they have this wealth of information that I feel like, they come with an expertise that I haven't seen in paid walking tours. So I would say, I, oh, look, Nickel Time popped in. What do you think about tours that see attractions versus food tours? Oh, good question. I like it. So I like both. Um, the where you're going to see different places and it's not a food tour. I guess the benefit is the same in both, but let me tell you why. Um, the places that you visit, you may want to go back there. And that's why I say when you do a free walking tour, make sure you do that free walking tour either day one or day two of your the day you arrive, because then it gives you the opportunity to go back to that place that you thought was so interesting, or your tour guide gave you information about and you maybe didn't have it on your itinerary. Um, the food walking tours now, I have to say, I really, really love those too. But those are not free. So if you do a food walking tour, they generally are paid walking tours. But they also give you that benefit of going to a restaurant, or you go and have samples at these different restaurants that they take you to. And you can decide if you want to go back there for food, for dinner or brunch or, whatever on your trip. And they are generally in that area that you book the tour or you're staying. And so it gives you the opportunity to be able to walk or easily get back to that restaurant that you did the food tour. So I think that's the biggest difference is the free walking tour. It gives you the opportunity to do it for free. The food walking tours are generally not free. So you do have to pay for those. But I have been on some fantastic food walking tours. I even did a bike tour where I got to bike around and eat while um, I was biking. So the bike tours are also great. Uh, Nick and I have done driving tours and e-bike tours. I liked both. I have to admit, though, I've had to get a little bit more comfortable with e-bikes. Um, I was raised in a household where my dad didn't allow us to ride bikes in the city because he was afraid that we might get hit by a car or something like that. And so I always rode bikes in the country. I know how to ride a bike, but it was kind of free for all. I can go wherever I wanted to go and have to pay attention to signs and things like that. In the city, you have to do that. A lot of cities, though, like Amsterdam, oh my gosh, they're crazy with the bikes. Like they are serious about their bike riding. So, it's a little intimidating there. But we also did a bike ride in Marseille. We went on a cruise and did a bike tour in Marseille where there wasn't places that were, had heavy traffic. And that was great. And again, both of those were paid tours. They were not free tours. We went to the Canadian Rockies and we did a bus tour. Those are great if you don't want to drive, but you have to go long distances. So Nick and I have experienced all those, different ways of touring. And so those are some things that you might want to explore when you are taking your trip. The other thing, don't be intimidated about riding bikes. If you feel like, oh, I'm out of shape or I haven't been on a bike since I was 6, don't worry about it. They have e-bikes now. You crank that sucker up and you can go for miles and you don't even have to pedal. You go up hills, you go down hills, and generally the leader of the tour will kind of go over how to manage an e-bike. So a lot of the tours that we've done in terms of bike tours are on e-bikes now. So Don't let that deter you. Um, so I did want to talk a little bit about, what we did in Portugal. In Portugal, we did a lot of walking. Okay, so we I made sure that I booked our palace close to the downtown area. So um, we stayed in a central area where we did a lot of walking. Portugal had a lot of stairs, a lot of hills, a lot of cobblestone. So, or I don't know if it's considered cobblestone. It was like brick sidewalks. So we did a lot of walking. So that's one of the things that you want to be aware of when you go to places is packing comfortable shoes. And that way that if you have to walk a lot, that you are prepared for all the walking that you do. Um, what surprised me about Portugal is it reminded me a lot of San Francisco. So if you didn't know this already, Nick and I are living in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we went to Portugal, and literally the bridge that is on the Tagus River was created or built by the same or designed by the same that architect that created the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And so a lot of, I mean, like literally, if you watch my video, you'll see I did a side by side of what San Francisco Bay looked like versus the Tagus River, and they are identical. The other thing was the weather. The weather was, we went in April and the weather was beautiful. And so Portugal is actually, you know, I would say I called it San Francisco's doppelganger. It was very, very similar in terms of weather, in terms of the um, the architecture there, and it reminded me of San Francisco, with the exception of all the castles. Like I don't know that you can go anywhere in San Francisco and see a bunch of castles. I mean, you can drive down the coast and go to Hearst Castle, but for the most part, the castles stood out in Portugal. Castles and palaces stood out in Portugal or Lisbon more than San Francisco. But because of the weather and the friendly people and the atmosphere and the reminder of San Francisco, that's actually one of the places that Nick and I are like looking at in terms of possible retirement in the next few years. So we're going to go back and we're going to visit again because we did find that it was a definite reminder of home, and that felt good. Um, the people were friendly. For the most part, because we stayed in the city center, a lot of people are bilingual. People speak Portuguese, but they also speak English. So I would say that Portugal was very friendly to Americans in terms of not just their reception of us, but also their ability to speak English and communicate with us, and us communicate with them. And just to kind of you know let you know that when you do go to a foreign country, one of the things that I try to do though as well is learn a couple of words in that language so that I feel like it's respectful. Where if you could at least say please and thank you, or maybe ask questions, ask a question in the language of the place that you visit. So we did learn a couple of Portuguese words and phrases. I have more Spanish under my belt, not saying that I'm fluent, but more Spanish under my belt than Portuguese. And the languages are different. So you can definitely, if you know Spanish and you speak Spanish, I would say that one of the things that you could do is Um, you know, if you go to Portugal anyway, learn a couple of phrases and just, speak to the people in their native tongue. Now, mind you, you'll say something and they might just go off in Portuguese. And then you have to let them know, that's all I know. I speak English. So you would have to, let them know that. But um, definitely benefits to know some of the language. Um, Let's see. In that last trip, we did do Portugal and Spain, with again the theme being castles and palaces. So we stayed in a palace. We went to go visit a castle in Portugal, in Lisbon, Castil de São Jorge, which is the castle of Saint George. And we went to see that. We also went to Sintra. And if you haven't watched my video, you need to watch it. We visited the Pena Palace and got a lot of history. And we actually stayed in a palace as well, Valverde in Sintra. And that was a fantastic experience. I would highly recommend, they're really expensive. But I would highly recommend that if you're doing a place and you don't know if you'll ever go back, to do those experiences. That was an amazing experience to stay in a palace. And just as a matter of engagement, I want to know from you, do you know the difference between a palace and a castle? If you do know, comment down in the comments what's the difference between a palace and a castle. Also, would you ever stay in a palace or castle and splurge and, do that? Now, mind you, at Dear Lisbon, it wasn't a splurge. It was like they converted it into a hotel. So it wasn't a huge, cost to stay there. However, it was comparable to, staying at a regular Airbnb or staying at a hotel. But when we stayed at the Sintra Palace, it was definitely a little bit more than staying at a regular hotel, but it was centrally located. Like, we were able to walk to La Quinta, we were able to walk to Pena Palace. And so we were, again, centrally located when we stayed at that palace. So it was awesome. We actually Ubered from Lisbon to Sintra, but there is a train that goes there. And if I did it again, I would definitely do the train. Train experience in Europe is fantastic. Just saying, I love taking the train. We spent a week in Portugal and then we went to Spain. So we did both. We flew from Lisbon to Madrid, and we went to Madrid and we spent the weekend in Madrid. And then we took the train from Madrid to Sevilla. And that train ride was just amazing. It was beautiful. Like, the scenery was beautiful. The train was clean. Like, the people were beautiful. That's the other thing I want to talk about. The people in both Portugal and Spain were so wonderful. I don't know. I guess being an American, I'm a little cynical. I'm like, why are people so nice? What do they want? And I got to get out of that, people. I got to get out of that. I got to just come to terms with people around the world are just nice. And, they don't have to have a reason to be nice. They're just being nice. So that has just been my experience, where the Portuguese people were amazing. Claudio at Dear Lisbon was amazing. He was our concierge there. And he seems like he runs the place, but he was just amazing, giving us, tips on restaurants and things like that. So make sure that you connect with those people that you meet there, because they are amazing people. Madrid was like Madrid reminded me of San Francisco too, in the sense that it was a huge city. It actually reminded me of New York a little bit because it seemed like there was, we stayed in the main city center, and it reminded me of New York because there was a theater like every other block, and there was like The Lion King was playing and Les Miserables was playing, and I wasn't sure if these were in Spanish or in English, but I mean, gosh, if I would have done more research, I would have found out, I can go to a play in a different country, and so Madrid is on the radar to go back to. But again, learn from my mistakes. Do that research ahead of time. We actually went to Madrid for a specific reason. And so I'm not going to tell you what that reason was because there's a lot of judgment behind it. I'm not going to tell you. But we enjoyed our time in Madrid, and then we went to Sevilla. So what's coming up next? Sevilla. So we are, the next video that is going to be up for you is our trip to Sevilla. And you'll get to see not only just Sevilla from our perspective, but also if you are a Game of Thrones fan, you have to join us for, wait for it, Dorne. Yes. So the island of Dorne, if you are familiar with the Game of Thrones series or the House of Dragons, there were several of the scenes from anywhere in Dorne was filmed in Sevilla. And so Nick and I were able to create our own tour of the gardens of Sevilla. It's called the Real Alcazar. We were able to visit that in Sevilla and recreate some scenes from the island of Dorne from the Game of Thrones. So stay tuned for that. So I'm going to wrap up. This was fun. I am hoping that to do this more often. So I want to make sure that people are seeing this and knowing that I am going to make this a frequent occurrence. I don't know if it's going to be weekly just yet, but I do want you to know that Lagniappe Lounge is going to be a part of my channel moving forward. And our next Lagniappe Lounge will be advertised. I'm not quite sure when it will be yet, but I'm going to try to make it consistent. So if you joined me today, thank you so much for joining me for my very first Lagniappe Lounge. I want to thank my partner in crime, my traveler in crime, my partner for life, the love of my life, Mr. Nicky, for joining me and giving you some background on our brand name. I hope you picked up a few travel tips and maybe even discovered a little Lagniappe along the way. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe to Lagniappelyfe so you don't miss our next adventure. Our next stop, just to remind you, is Sevilla, Spain. So keep an eye out for that video. And until next time, remember, sometimes the little extras become the best memories. So safe travels, and we'll see you in the next Lagniappe Lounge. Bye.